Okay, good morning. It's May 5th, Thursday, May 5th, excuse me. We have open session this morning. Looking forward to a good conversation and presentation from the Maryland Association of Counties. Really appreciate the President and Executive Director being here. We'll hear from them in just a few. But as always, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, as we always do, we'll start with Priority Carol. I will share that appreciation to Sheriff DeWeese and his entire team in putting together this morning's prayer breakfast. It was both well attended and, I think appreciated by all that were there and all that spoke. So, but let's get into Priority Carol. Commissioner Frazier, what's on your mind?
Well, I can't read my notes, so it's difficult.
Is that old age?
I wrote it too quickly. So I'll go over a couple of things that I don't have to look down here. What is that last thing? Anyway, I was at the ribbon cutting for the Infinity Center yesterday over at Eldersburg. This is a resource, I guess you could call it, for the county. They do testing of children to see if they have any
I'm listening.
for autism and so forth. The hard thing is getting children tested so they can get a diagnosis, so they can get the services. Because without the diagnosis, you cannot get the services. They have their own psychologists on staff over there so they can get the testing done. I think this will work out great with Carroll County. Hopefully the school system will take full advantage of this, because it's they work with students as young as 18 months up to 6 years old, and they transition into the school system. So that's a great thing. I was also at the 7th Annual Drug Overdose and Prevention Vigil this past week. It's always very sad there. It really is. As they call out the names of the individuals that have passed away from overdoses in this past 2 years, since we haven't had a one on live, in person one recently. So it's good to have that. It's good as a reminder. They always have good speakers, and I really think the speakers are impactful. And plus they're open afterwards if you want to talk to them and get their number, something like that. A lot of people, there's a lot of resources here. You just have to reach out and grasp the resources. They're here. You got to take that first step on your own. And that's probably the hardest thing to do, is get people to take that first step. The last thing I have written down here, I can't read. If I remember what it is, I'll come back to it later. All right.
Wow. Okay, Commissioner Wentz.
Good morning. Honored to sit beside you, Commissioner Frazier, at the drug vigil the other night.
I thought you meant in general.
Or in general.
Okay.
We could I could push it that far. But it was a very, it was somber, but yet it was celebratory, because remembering the lives of those that have been lost with that is critical. So kudos to the State's Attorney's Office for putting that together. And I told the State's Attorney, Alan Culver, that's probably the first time that I've heard him speak at that length since he's been State's Attorney, and he did a remarkable job. So
You did. I have to say that as well.
yeah. So my typical attorney jokes that I make, I'm going to refrain from that today, Mr. Burke. And Ms. Wyndham, you're welcome.
I give you 5 minutes.
Don't worry, we have plenty of jokes.
I want to thank those that attended my Carroll County Chamber breakfast last. When was that? Monday, Tuesday?
This week sometime.
When was it? I don't know. I lose
Tuesday.
track of time.
I thought you mentioned it, that's why I didn't have it down in my notes.
Okay, so so that
Tuesday.
was pretty well attended up in Tawnytown, and this is my opportunity to thank the chamber for all that they've done in the almost 8 years that three of us here have been in office, with their State of the County address that they sponsor, and the annual breakfasts that they do for all of us. That's remarkable. So we thank them for their collaboration in the county. Union Mills had a very successful flower mart last weekend. I want to thank them for all that they've done And if you went up there and picked out a flower, that's good. And you probably picked it out because Sunday is Mother's Day. And what can you say about that hasn't already been said? Or, it's a day to honor some tremendous moms. There's the Flower Mart. Nicely done, Chris. It's a day to honor the moms and pay tribute to them for all that they do, and it's my opportunity while I'm on the air this morning to say Happy Mother's Day to my mom, who will be 86 this year, and certainly to my wife Kathy and my 2 daughters, who are both moms now. So it's a great day, and I hope you take the opportunity to thank all the moms out there. It is also Teacher Appreciation Week. So make sure you thank teachers. My daughter has been an elementary school teacher now for about 12 years. And again, what do you say about the teachers? They do an amazing job. And
I think you should thank former teachers as well.
Or those
and the
that-
former
or-
teachers, yes, the former teachers.
Apologize. I abruptly have to step out for a call.
Okay.
We still maintain a quorum if you.
Yep. Okay.
Hopefully I'll be
Got it.
back.
Okay.
So.
Yesterday was National Firefighters Day. I hope you took the opportunity to thank a firefighter. If not, now's your opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Set a
Thank you.
fire in your honor.
Well done. Yeah, whatever. Thank you very much.
You notice no sprinklers.
Yeah. So let me take a moment to talk about sprinklers. Anyway, in our county, the majority of our suppression calls are handled by volunteers still. So don't just take the opportunity on the day. If you see them out and about, thank them for what they do. And I'll also remind folks that we are rapidly getting to a point where we're going to begin our combination system here, which I think will be the best anywhere. So thank a firefighter when you can. Cinco de Mayo's today. Mexican's Independence Day, and I don't know exactly what that means that we're supposed to do. Mr. Burke, I believe you have something in mind, but I'm going to let, no, I'm not handing it over to you. Forget that. So anyway, yeah, well, margaritas come to mind, and all of the fabulous food that we've experienced. And so if you have the opportunity to celebrate Cinco de Mayo, please take the opportunity to do that. Planning Commission last night was good. I sort of kind of muted myself and took myself off the screen because they started with open meetings training. I'm open meetings trained up to way above my height. They also went into ethics training. I did pay attention to that because apparently I need some, upgrades on that every now and then.
Need
So-
for that?
Yeah, so whatever. Anyway, and then they're talking about ag zoning, which will soon be in front of us.
Yes, it will.
So they did a great job of talking about that. There were actually some good callers on there. One of them mentioned you, Dick, about your involvement. They were talking about housing and those things that are occurring in our our agricultural zones. So anyway, that happened. Commissioner Rothstein and I had a really good meeting with Comcast 2 days ago. There's new leadership now for our district. We're very much looking forward to working with them. I don't need to get into that. You are probably exhausted hearing me talk about the fact that everyone should have internet in this county, and so I won't go into that sermon. But Comcast is re-energized, if you will, and I hope that they bring some good things to the county. And finally, we were at the 50th anniversary of our Bureau of Aging and Disabilities last week. And what do you say about that, from our senior centers to everything else that is just incredible here that these folks have accomplished? Kudos to all of you. One of those young ladies is sitting in the room, so you can pass along our thanks for a really nice day. And it was incredibly well attended. I couldn't believe it.
Oh.
And
It was.
Those that gave speeches did a remarkable job.
Some of them. That was
I'm glad the speeches
weeks
were done
ago.
before I got over there, but go ahead.
that was 2 weeks ago, and we kind of divided up. And I think Commissioner Frazier and I attended the Special Olympics opening.
Which was also the 50th anniversary.
Also the same day as and we about froze to death. Well, these other guys were in warm climate, but that was when we got there. It was nice to be inside, but that was a great event. Both of them were.
I heard the speeches were better at the Special Olympics than they were at the.
Yeah, that's what I heard. But anyhow,
Heard wrong. And finally, for me, Carroll County is again
This guy's never done.
with the lowest unemployment ranking in the state. We are tied with Howard County. I talked with County Executive Ball yesterday, and he reminded me that that he thinks that it's a little bit of a competition going on there, which I reminded him that we always win. So I don't know how that'll play out, but anyway, we're tied with Howard County. But 3.3% is really good. When the state
we're
average is
back and forth here.
4.3. Yeah, I'm still going, and I'm done.
Seriously? Oh my gosh.
thanks for the filibuster.
Okay, you're welcome.
Wow.
Oh, and no, go ahead.
Anyway, after the Special Olympics and 50th anniversary, I had a chance to attend the Freedom Alliance Veterans Night. I was invited. We had a very inspirational speaker. It was really interesting to hear a former commander of Fort Meade and what he's been through and how he broke down about all the issues he's had and what he's gone through, and it was really good. And Ed, you did a great job on that, putting it together. Also, I wanted to mention our own veterans celebration here. If you're not aware, in Carroll County, we do a lot for veterans in Carroll County. This year, May 15th, from noon to 4, we will have the first veterans celebration in Carroll County, inviting 12,000 veterans to the Fire Museum. The Army Band will be playing. We will have military, hopefully a helicopter sitting down. We have other equipment out there. It's a family event. It's things for children to be attending. It's families. We're trying to get the veterans, basically the younger veterans that are not associated with anything going on in the county, what services are available to them. One of all our service officers will be there to help them get their VA cards. Our service organizations will all be there, letting people know what's available. So this is the first time ever. Thank you, Chris. We are putting this together. Hopefully it's an annual event in Carroll County. But this is due to the Carroll County Advisory Council putting this together, and hopefully this will be one of the premier events in the future here in Carroll County to draw all veterans together, and I'm really happy about that. And just one other note. This time of the year, you're seeing a lot of large equipment heading down the roads, large spray rigs, large planting units. Work with them to get out of the road, because some of those units take up 12 feet of the road or more, and they're folded up. And they can't navigate around mailboxes and telephone poles and things like that. You have to work with the operator to get around those areas a little bit. So just be aware, they're willing to work with you. Just if you see one on the road, look for the driver and see what they're doing. Navigate with them. Thank you.
I walk out and you become the safety officer. I don't know. It's like, flip. But I do appreciate the comment about the Veterans Appreciation Day. Again, for the community, we have 3 veteran support officers that are part of our county government. I believe we're the only county that now does that. And I continue to work with Secretary Owings and his team to promote getting VSOs a part of county government, and it can be put on half day or full day. But it has really made a difference and saved millions and millions of dollars since its inception. This, May 15th event is really looking to be a great event. And Chris, that was a great video. It had the 6-string Army Band and a whole lot of other things to it. The Lions Club event, is always important to me. I'm a fellow Lion like Dick over here, and I talk about silencing the stigma that we have and trying to figure out the demons, and that's kind of what I talked about was, post-conflict, post a lot of things after 30 years, people say if you don't have a problem, something's wrong with you. So, taking care of that and making sure the community understands. The only other thing, just as Commissioner Frazier, you shared down in Eldersburg, it's a really good opportunity, again, how to wrap your arms around a community. And it's very difficult with autism, the 18-month to 6-year-old, because it is a 18-month to 2-year waiting list to get in assessments of these kids at Kenny Krieger and other facilities. That's way too long. And this is a way to mitigate that and do better. At the end of the day, when this is up and running completely, it's going to have 40 kids capacity for morning and afternoon. A big shout out to our good friend collectively, Greg Keller and the Kellert Foundation, because he sees the needs in our community, and it's deeds, not words, when it comes to Mr. Kellert. So I really appreciate the Kellert Foundation and all they're doing, and our community for embracing this this need. So, okay, I think we'll stop there. You see we're one short. Wishing the best for Commissioner Boucher in his recovery. Not sure what the situation is, but I believe he's under the weather. So we do have a quorum, so let's continue and start with, ladies, why don't you come on up and talk about the approval to submit the application accepted award for FY23 Homeless Solutions Program Grant through Housing or Maryland DHCD. Thanks.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Commissioners. I am here this morning with Debbie Standerford from our Grants Office and Scott Yard, who is the Executive Director for Human Services Program of Carroll County. We're here to receive permission to apply and accept an award for the Homeless Solutions Program Grant. Annually, the Department of Housing and Community Development provides state and federal funding for homeless services through the Homeless Solutions Program Grant. With this grant, Carroll County supports following programs: the Adult and Night by Night Shelter, our Adult and Family Rapid Rehousing Program, our Youth Rapid Rehousing Program, outreach, and administrative costs associated with managing the grant. As the grantee, the county subgrants funding to Human Services Program of Carroll County to support these shelters and housing programs. The Department of Citizen Services will also operate outreach activities and the Rapid Rehousing Program for the youth that are supported with these funds. In addition, the Department of Citizen Services provides fiscal and programmatic oversight of the subgrant funds. In fiscal year 21, the county provided housing and assistance for 517 homeless individuals. So far for fiscal year 2022, we have served 478 homeless individuals. Funding for fiscal year 22 is held flat to fiscal year 21's award. Recently, Treasury announced the change in the ERAP 1 and ERAP 2 funding, adjusting the spending period from September of 2025 to end with December of 2022. Considering this change, an additional $5 million in state general funds has been added to the Homeless Solutions Program, allowing for a larger competitive portion, which could potentially provide our agency double the funding. We are applying for the maximum amount of competitive funds. In order to accommodate for the shorter ERAP assistance period, we have requested additional funding to support case management and housing stability with homeless prevention assistance, outreach, and rapid rehousing assistance through this competitive portion of the grant. The grant request is for $802,400. The county match is $544,507 for a total of $1,346,907. The county match will be met with Human Services Program of Carroll County's county budget allocation, so there are no additional county dollars that are required. Are there some questions that Debbie and I can answer for you?
The census that was recently done, I don't know if it's a census, whatever, the count.
The count.
Yeah, the point in time count, not census. Point in time count. Is that added into this? Is that data
So, yes,
used?
when you're looking at
Yeah.
who we've served, the individuals would be sheltered and through outreach, so they are included in that 478 for this year so far.
So 478, but here it says 517.
517 is for fiscal year 21, and currently this year in fiscal year 2022, we've served 478 individuals.
I think, Commissioner, that was a typo
that
on
was
the
a
briefing
typo,
paper.
yes, in the briefing.
That was the year
Okay.
count for 21
It
was
21.
517.
Okay, I apologize.
No,
Do you have a breakdown of the, and it can, I don't expect it being so objective, but subjective on the number of veterans, the number of age groups, male, female?
So not with me, but absolutely, I can forward that information to you. We can give it to
Yeah.
you by year if you would
That'd
like.
be really helpful, just so we know either there's inclines or declines in certain populations. And, you know, there's other nonprofits and services that may gear towards this as well to be supplemental to
Absolutely.
this. So, okay. Man. Any questions?
I was
Or?
going to say, I'll make the motion. The Board of Commissioners approves the submission of the FY23 Homeless Solutions Grant application and accept the award.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion, questions? Thank you so much, ladies. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now we have the pleasure of bringing up Mr. Mike Sanderson, the Executive Director of the Maryland Association of Counties, and Ms. Laura Price, the President of the Maryland Association of Counties. And just a quick preface from me, and if others want to add in, the opportunity to participate in Maryland Association of Counties the way we have, and I've said it, you know, multiple times, having, you know, a colleague with Commissioner Wentz as a member of the board, and the participation that both Commissioner Frazier and Wentz have is fantastic. The open communication candidness is so important as we go through some challenging times. And it's just one of the pieces of the puzzle to understanding Maryland and the region, whether it's the BMC, the Economic Alliance of Greater Baltimore, MACO, they all dovetail with each other to understanding the impact that both legislation have and the economics and social, cultural, everything else. So really appreciate you both coming this way. One had to come a little bit further than the other, but that's okay. Maybe I'd rather be on the other side of the bridge right now, but you know, we're here.
Yeah.
So does Steve, I mean,
Well,
that's-
everybody knows how I feel. I said this the other day at my chamber breakfast. Back when I got into this office in 2014, we were all kind of deciding who was going to do what, and they looked at me and said, "Would you be interested in MACO?" And I'm like, "So what's MACO again?"
can you spell it?
And I said yes, I would. You know, after a brief description, I said, "Yeah, that sounds like something that I'd be interested in." So, the rest is history. I will tell you that as almost an 8-year veteran of this office now, we could not do what we do without MACO. There is absolutely no question about that. You are. MACO's the rock that keeps all of us in the state rolling along. And Laura, you know that, and we talk about that all the time. So, Michael, to you and your staff, huge thank you for all that you folks do for us, not only throughout the legislative craziness of the year, but throughout the year with everything that you provide the counties. You do an awesome job, and I you know, it's something that that the memory of being involved with MACO will be forever with me, and I truly do appreciate the opportunity. So, thank you.
Okay.
Well, I agree with everything that you said. I appreciate the fact that you recognize what MACO does. Again, for the record, I'm Laura Price. I'm honored to be the current president of the Maryland Association of Counties and Talbot County Council member. We are really grateful to be here this morning. A little early, I did have to get up at 5:30. I will forgive you for that. We're going to provide you with updates from the General Assembly, and it's just been 3 weeks since good old Sine Die. It feels like forever already. The second half of session, we had things opened up. We had the opportunity to get out and shake some hands and start really communicating with those legislators in person, which makes all the difference in the world. To be able to be face to face with them, to really talk about what's important about why we like a bill, why we don't like a bill, and why it needs to be amended. And that opportunity happened, and we had our reception, near the end of session, about 3 or 4 weeks before the end of session, which was, I think, the perfect opportunity as we were trying to get through a few of these bills. There are about 2,700 of them. They love to introduce just a lot of stuff. MACo analyzed over 900 of them, which is just an enormous amount of work for the staff, and they have to go through that fast and furious, and I am eternally grateful for all of the work that they get done. I'm also eternally grateful for all the work that the Legislative Committee, and again, thank you, Steve, for everything that you do there. You are a very strong voice on that committee. We couldn't do it without you. And the committee comes together, and the last 2 years, unfortunately, it's been in, virtual in the Zoom room, and I've been trying to keep my little chickens together, going, turn on your cameras and, make sure that they stay involved, and I think they'll be glad when that part's over. That's a big commitment, whether you're traveling to Annapolis or to make sure that you're setting aside time, every Wednesday morning to do that. Our Rural County Coalition gets together on Monday nights and talks about all the bills that we're going to do on Wednesdays, and you're a big part of that as well. Steve, sometimes we don't have a quorum on that one, as you know. But, MACo's credibility is because of the elected officials. While the staff is really doing all the work, all the legwork, it's us that gives that final approval and gives direction to the General Assembly, and why MACo is so credible. Another reason is this man right next to me. We are so lucky to have this leader who keeps it all organized and leads this amazing organization. It is just a real honor to be able to serve with you this year, Michael, and continuing to learn how to get things done in a very nonpartisan way. Something I know the Legislative Committee understands, and that we recognize how the legislation is affecting our counties and not necessarily making decisions on what our personal beliefs or politics are. And that, that's a hard thing to do. And I think it's the number one thing that I'm going to take away after my 12 years, because I'm not doing this again. And in my last year, and I really wish that the federal government and the state government could see what we do, how we communicate in those sessions on Wednesday morning. And if they would look at how MACo gets things done, then maybe the other levels of government might be able to do so as well. And you've already started the dialogue, and one of the things that I'm saying as we go around to these county tours is wanting this to be more of a dialogue, not just a presentation from us to you, making sure that, after we give you this update, that you're telling us, what we did well, what we can improve upon, and make sure that we involve all of you. I mean, we see Steve all the time, and,
Is that a
most
good
of the
thing?
rest of the county commissioners
I'm just asking.
come to the conferences and all.
Thing, right,
No,
Laura?
I'm just
It's a
asking.
wonderful thing. I love you. But we want to make sure that everybody's involved. So, make sure that we're having a lot of good question and answers, and obviously reaching out. That MACo is always accessible all the times of the year, and don't just rely just on your legislative committee member, but all of you. So I do want to hit on the first topic before I let, Michael take over the rest. And I know this one is very special in Steve's heart, and that is that emergency transport bill. And Steve and I both sit on the initiative subcommittee, where we start with about 50 different pieces of potential legislation, and we have to whittle that down to no more than 4 as per MACo's bylaws. It's always a hard decision, but in the 8 years I think I've been doing this on the committee, this was a tough one, and it came down to cybersecurity or EMS transport. And we knew that cybersecurity had legs of its own, that was going to have sponsors, in Annapolis anyway, and we knew that the only one who could carry the water on EMS was the counties. And, Michael was like, I don't know about this. It's going to be a tough one. It might take 2 or 3 years to get this through. It's kind of a big fiscal note on this one. But I know that Steve and I really pushed, and along with a couple of the others, that this was the right place for it to be. And we won. We got this one done. So I'll tell you a little bit so for the listening public, what this does. Up until the bill passed, currently we only got reimbursed in our EMS for our ambulances $100 per trip, and only if we transported to an emergency room. We didn't get reimbursed if you treated the person on site and they didn't require transport. We didn't get reimbursed if you went to an urgent care center or to a doctor's office or some other appropriate facility. And we didn't get reimbursed one thing we added to this bill was mobile integrated health. We lovingly call them our frequent flyers, people that call 911 a lot. And when we go out, but if we have some downtime, going out and visiting these folks, at home to make sure and check on them that they're okay. So that might eliminate or cut down on some of those calls, those emergency calls. And so what this accomplished was we are going to $150 for reimbursement. We would like it to get up to the $300 that we initially asked for, but this is a good start in the right direction, and it will reimburse for all of those things. It will also enable us, while this is not an insurance issue, having Medicare and Medicaid recognize that being reimbursed for these other types of transport or treating on site, it also enables us, if someone does have insurance, of course, we're always going to treat no matter what. We're going, whether or not someone's got coverage or not. But for those that do, we're able to now bill, the insurance company because it's recognized now by the state. So I just, I want to thank you all for your support, and especially Steve for testifying on this bill. It was huge to have that testimony coming from the elected officials, and so that the state legislators really understand what it is we're facing with our emergency services department. So we had a great session. We got a lot of things through like that. We killed some bills that really needed to die, and we got a lot of amendments on things that needed change, and they recognized that. So from here, I'm going to let Michael take over this song and dance that I started, and let you go on.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President and Commissioners. I'm Michael Sanderson, the Director of the Maryland Association of Counties. Flattered by your opening comments and very pleased to be with you this morning. For the teeming millions who are viewing this morning, I'll say the Maryland Association of Counties is a nonprofit that represents all the elected officials across county governments across the state, including Baltimore City and the 23 jurisdictions, so county commissioners, council members, and executives across the state. We do a lot of education and information and conferences and support for the county commissioners and county governing bodies across the state. At the moment, we're just a few weeks past the end of the General Assembly's legislative session. One of MACO's functions is to advocate and support county services before the state legislature. So that's a good deal of what we're speaking about today. We're sort of in that window of time where the state has just done its best, and counties are in the midst of preparing budgets and so forth through an annual cycle, and the time is right to sort of talk about what's happened on policy, but MACO has a footprint that's a little bit bigger than public policy. I'll speak to a couple of things. We've distributed a packet to you all. I don't plan to go through that in any detail, but all that information are excerpts from the Conduit Street blog that's on the MACO website. That's a resource both for county officials, but also for the general public who's interested in policy and county government matters. So I'll speak to just a few things and try and be respectful of your time, but it was a blur of a legislative session. Health effects still played a little bit of a role, with the legislature doing a fair amount of its work remotely rather than face-to-face for a good deal of their public hearings. They were remote sessions. That was probably a big impediment for some players in Annapolis, less so for Mako, because we have relationships with the senators and delegates already. We didn't have to introduce ourselves via email to say, can we please ask for your help on an amendment or that sort of thing. We have relationships with virtually everybody in town. We work with across the aisle and with everybody in town. This was a peculiar year in a number of ways, financially among them. I've sat at this table a number of times before you talking about, well, here's how we got through a tricky budget year in Annapolis, and we tried to fend off a budget cut or a cost shift or things of that nature, and sometimes we win, sometimes we lose on those sort of battles. This is a weird circumstance, and I know counties are in the midst of it too. In part, the federal response to this health pandemic has been to try and avert an economic catastrophe that would mirror the public health catastrophe that we have faced. And as a result, we're in a weird spot. You mentioned unemployment numbers, surprisingly low, right? Like well under 4% here in Carroll, around 4% for the state of Maryland, under 5% for the United States. That's usually the indicator of a strong and healthy economy. Public sector revenues are relatively strong right now. Whether that's a function of the federal government helping out businesses through grants and through people getting stimulus payments and deferrals of student loans and so forth, I mean, that helps people buy meals and shoes and things like that generate public revenues. I don't think we really know whether the relative surplus on the public ledger is temporary or permanent. But it left us in a circumstance this budget year where the state was not looking to slash budgets and looking to shift costs onto counties and so forth. So a little bit of a reprieve from that and some opportunities to fill in some gaps, which I think we availed ourselves of reasonably. Madam President spoke about cybersecurity. We're going to see some new resources and guidance and assistance on cybersecurity, in part because of the budget, in part because of legislation. We know the public sector is just a delicious target for people who want to do us ill, that we hold sensitive information about taxpayers and health records and things like that. And if they can seize it and hold it hostage and ask for Bitcoin, that's a great business for them to be in. So it suits us to have strong defenses and good recovery plans in the event that those sort of things happen. And sadly, they're going to continue to happen.
Like, if I can just inject,
Sure.
I believe the solution is it's like all the above, legislation funding, but also academia and business cooperation. I was on a panel discussion, or I was at a panel discussion, and very reputable business leaders talked about, they're in the cyber community, and talked about what kept them up at night. And 3 out of 4 said local government. That's amazing. I mean, we're talking very, very large corporations. 3 out of 4 said local government because of the vulnerabilities and our dependence on 1 or 2 individuals, and we're not resourced. So it really does come down to a partnership on the legislation, which was done in some respect, but also the academia and business community to getting it right. We are very, very vulnerable, especially at this level. So. Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head, and those the advisors who are part of that conversation, I think are reading the room correctly. Mm-hmm. That we are, sadly, local governments are particularly situated as just great targets for folks who want to do us harm. So we've got to be smart about it, and this is not my area of expertise, but I know enough to know that the thinking about it doesn't start with just playing defense. Like, you want to have good systems and make sure that you're applying patches and that you have good leadership from folks like Mark Ripper in the county governments as your directors of IT to make sure, lots of people moving and working remotely has created its own extra vulnerability. Everybody using their own devices. It keeps people like Mark up night as well. So you take care of it on the front end, but you also need to have a good plan on the back end. So a combination of the State Department of Department of IT, but also the Maryland Department of Emergency Management, treating these incidents in the kind of the same way as a tornado touchdown is the right mentality. When something happens, you mobilize across units, across governments, get everybody on it quickly. That we haven't always had that mentality. I think Maryland is moving in the right direction that way.
I mean, we're, after this, we're going to be listening, and I see the sheriff behind us, about body-worn cameras, how to become proactive in situations, not just for, it's for both sides. It's not protecting those that they're, trying to de-escalate a situation, but also for them themselves. So with cybersecurity at the local level, what we have to address is how to be proactive at the lowest level, and that is very concerning. So just throwing it out there to think about, but okay.
So I will, if I may, Mr. President, I'll make a quick departure from things I plan to speak about, and let me give you about 90 seconds on body cameras from Annapolis point of view, because there's unfinished business on Maryland policy regarding body cameras. The state has already said it's going to be law as of, I think it's the 1st of 2025. We want to have every officer in every agency equipped with a camera. And I think on balance, this is a good policy. You said it exactly right. This mutually serves accountability for officers, it protects the public. I think it protects the agency as well, that when your officer has followed protocols and done the right thing, when you can demonstrate that reduces your liability for what becomes a claim or a lawsuit or whatever. So I think we're going to be in a better place once we have everybody with the cameras. That said, Maryland has laws on the books about open government, public documents. The Public Information Act has basically been written decades ago around pieces of paper sitting in manila folders. Someone comes to a desk, I want a copy, please, I'd like to see that public document. You run a copy, here's 3 pages, here you go. That's the way the Public Information Act is basically written, assuming that's how things work. 20 years ago, we had to rethink public information because a lot of the information is now a database. Oh, it's on a diskette or a thumb drive, and it has 65,000 entries. Okay, how do you share that, in what format, blah, blah, blah. The next tier is stored data from body cameras. That is itself effectively a document. Even if it's 8 hours of footage from each officer for each shift for the last 90 days, it's sitting on a server or in storage in some fashion. That is effectively a public document. And as the laws read right now, anyone can walk in the door and more or less say, I want it all. I want to see all of it. Well, on the hours of footage from a body camera, there are bound to be interviews with witnesses, children's, victims, confidential informants, all sorts of things where, sometimes governments get a bad reputation because folks like Tim have to magic marker out, sensitive detail on that sort of thing. That's what you have to do. You share a document, but you don't release the health records about an individual, so you redact. Doing that frame by frame on video is super costly and difficult. We need to thread the needle more wisely than we have yet on what do we owe the public to share with them for free. Public exposure of what's happening is fair, but the idea of, hey, I run a website and I want to put some prurient stuff on my website that people will get a kick out of, that is not the way public access information ought to work. So we need to get that right. We've got a little time before everybody has these cameras, but that's one component of what's ahead for Maryland on public records like that. So
I appreciate it. Thanks.
So with that, I'll speak to just a couple other things on fiscal issues writ large. I'll say one thing in particular that is a payoff for a lot of work by our local governments. We're in Annapolis all the time saying a variation on the theme, and that theme being we think local decision-making is best for each community. That the commissioners here in Carroll probably have a better idea how to tailor a program in Carroll, and then the Garrett County commissioners may have a different idea of what they want to do there, and in Talbot County, the council will have a different idea what they want to do there. We'd rather not have Annapolis say one size fits all, do it all this way. And we have some pushes and pulls and policy debates like that. That's all very fair. When it comes to tax policy, we have generally tried to say, yeah, when it comes to things like the local property tax, let that be the local decision makers. Don't mandate that we do things, make it a local option. If we want to do something for seniors or for veterans or for other classes of citizens, you can give a tax break as a local option rather than the state mandating it. This year, a good deal of debate showed up about what the state might be able to do with tax relief on the income tax side. And the standard variation of tax break on the income tax side is just a write-off. A subtraction modification is the term of art in the state. And so if you write off things on your state taxes, that has a carryover effect on every county. If this $1,000 is no longer taxable, not only is it not taxed by the state, it's not taxed by the county. Effectively, they've made your decision for you. For years, MACO has said, we think the fairer way to go is leave these things as a local option. And if the counties want to add on, if you've got an opportunity to do something temporarily or permanently, make it a local call. That's what they did this year. They wanted to move the needle. The governor was very interested in senior tax relief for retirees. And the state said, we want to give a $1,000 tax benefit. The way they decided to do it this year was as a $1,000 tax credit against your state taxes. So that leaves the county, it's up to you if you want to provide some relief for one class or another. If your budget affords that, we know you've got obligations with school funding that's driven by state mandates. You've got a variety of other needs at the local level. That should be your call. If you want to piggyback on top of those benefits, you can make that as a local decision. We think that's the right way to go. That is never going to be above the fold, A1, bold type. Like that's not sexy news out of Annapolis. But for county governments running your own, running your own budgets and making your own decisions, that's a really big deliverable. We could have been on the hook for hundreds of millions of dollars of just along for the ride tax cuts. Instead, you get to make that call, and I think that's the right way for that to go.
I just want to just jump on that and just say, I've been sitting on the Budget and Tax Committee for 6 years, and this is one that come through submods. It's every week there are 6 or 8 different subtraction modifications, and for the last half a dozen years we've been sending this letter, and it's like, is it ever going to pay off? Is it ever going to pay off? And it did. And when we had our last session, it was the night of our reception, and we did an in-person meeting for our last legislative committee meeting. And Senate President Ferguson came in, and he spoke to 3 things that he was really paying attention. One was the MS bill, one was the highway user revenues, and the other was state tax credits. I was like, oh my gosh, and that's what happened. But that's what I'm saying. It's not the above the fold, like Michael said, but it is so huge for us. And that goes back to what I said about, whether you're Republican or Democrat. Yeah, one side might think, I want all these tax relief and things like that, and the other side's like, no, tax more. That's where MACO comes in, and that the people that are sitting there and we're making that decision is, how does it affect our county? We've got to fund the schools. We've got to fund public safety. We have all these other things to fund. And while I might personally think, yeah, I love tax relief, I know I got to pay the bills, as do you. So I just wanted to put an exclamation point on what he just told you about that, because that is huge this year. And hopefully we'll carry that forward, be a new crop of local electeds, a new crop of state delegates and senators, and we need to make sure that they still understand that next year.
So I'll speak to one more issue for a couple of minutes, because we moved in the right direction on a long-standing issue. This is highway user revenues, which is the share of state gas taxes and vehicle taxes that get sent back to local governments to maintain roads. This is a dozen years or so in the making. In the Great Recession in the summer of 2009, the state basically said, we've got a problem. It's only August of a new fiscal year, and we've already got a crisis. They grabbed almost all of our highway user revenues, and we've been limping our way back since then. The annual share of that money that comes to Carroll County, independent of your municipalities, about $2.7 million. And if we didn't pass a bill this year, we were going to fall off a cliff, and that was going to drop to under 2, probably $1.6 million, $1.8 million, or something in that neighborhood. So we needed to do something this year. We put in a bill to fully restore that county share and get back to where we ought to be. What we ended up with was a bill with a multiple year upswing. It's not a full restoration, but it moves us in the right direction. Pretty good thing. Sometimes you have to take half a loaf. I don't know exactly where you count this in fractions of loaves, but the 2.7 to Carroll is going to grow up to probably around 4.4 over the next 3 years. So the coming year will be about the same. We'll click up for 3 years in a row. Then we'll fall off a cliff again, but not even all the way back to where we are today. So we're moving in the right direction. This isn't a touchdown, but it's a solid 15-yard pass, first down, keep moving, drive goes on, which I don't love. I would love to be spiking the football at this point, but we take what we can get. It took a lot of bipartisan help. It took a lot of participation by county officials. We had almost every jurisdiction participating in person and online at these public hearings and making the case. Those hearings could not have gone any better. And to be honest, the difference between the in-person hearing in the Senate and the virtual hearing in the House, I think made the difference. Between the House felt like, well, we can give you a nickel on the dollar, and the Senate was like, we have to do better than that. We heard what they said.
You could feel the energy in the room. They moved us up to first. I know you were there, and again, over 20 jurisdictions, all the big county executives being there. Sitting there was just so powerful. You could feel that, and that is the difference between being in person and virtual. And I remember that the next day doing it again virtually in the house, and I was talking to some of the staff, and it was great. I'm like, oh no, it just felt different. So he's absolutely right.
Yeah,
So
and I can tell you that I've never seen a bipartisan effort like that in my 8 years. When I've got Brandon Scott and Johnny O sitting on this side, and Angela also Brooks sitting on this side, and Laura, you're on the other side. I mean, how could they not have said, we have to do something? That's the true meaning of making a difference down there. And that was a day that I was honored to be there. It was remarkable.
Was.
So,
Well, we end every session.
spike the football, so but we appreciate what you did. I mean, what the efforts got us is.
Yep.
We'll take what we can get at this point.
That's where we are, and we've got a lot of folks to thank, and we still have work to be done. So that's okay to be in that spot. I'll mention one other issue pretty briefly, because I know it's on the docket for you and most of the county governing bodies. Police reform efforts from 2021. They had an opportunity to do a little nip and tuck on that bill this past session. It didn't go deep. It didn't solve some of the technical issues. We're left in an awfully quirky spot. I know you all have a proposal for the accountability board and charging committee to put those in place and get them up and running by July 1. Even without, in all candor, what was supposed to be the rules of the road set forth by state regulations. The game plan was state regs were going to be floated in, say, December or January, approved by about now, so we'd all know the details, and that hasn't happened for reasons that I think are understandable and reasonable. It's left counties in a tough spot. I can't give you a legal judgment on this, but my lay judgment is most of the counties are doing exactly what you are. Make a good faith effort to put these bodies together, establish what you can. We'll staff them up and we'll get the gears turning as soon as we possibly can. If the state gives us a wrench in the works on July 18th or something like that, if we have to nip and tuck our own thing, we'll do that. But I think everybody can live with the framework that the state has in mind for civilian-driven oversight of police conduct and some process that's going to act similar to the old Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights, but provide adjudication when there are claims against officers, both internal and external. So I don't want to get super deep into what's into that bill, but every county's going through what you are. We're not in an ideal circumstance. Appreciate you all making the best of a tough hand.
From my perspective, every jurisdiction, as we know, is very different. We have 8 municipalities. Most of them have law enforcement associated with them, partnering with our sheriff and the MML and them, coming up with a solution to have in place, I think is a good thing, to ensure that they are also a part of that solution, they being the jurisdictions. The biggest concern that I have is I want to ensure that we do not focus our attention on the diversity of the population, where we're actually out diversifying what really matters. So in other words, do not identify, I want this type and this type and that type. No, let's bring them all forward. Let the Board of Commissioners make the decisions appropriately, like we do with every board and commission. And then we, at that point, will have a good mix that represents Carroll County, as opposed to being so procedural on it's this one or that one. And at least that's my perspective, and I think we have that responsibility to do that. So,
All well said, I think. So with that, I'll close and say there's more stuff in the packet, and there's a great deal more that happened this legislative session. We did a little infographic for you about the breadth of different things that MACo gets involved in. I'll close with, we try and run a tally on success rate of the bills that we get involved in, and that is a genuinely misleading number. But I mean, 80% success. I don't like getting B minuses, but I will tell you that when MACo supports a bill in Annapolis, it has a good deal better chance to pass than a random bill. And when MACo comes to the table and either opposes or says this bill needs to be fixed in specific ways, the likelihood of that bill passing just over our objections and we get ignored is very remote. We come away out of each session with, at a max, 2 or 3 bills where we just couldn't get stuff done. For the most part, we come to the table, we work things out, we round off the we smooth off those rough edges, and we get things done in Annapolis. We want to be effective on your behalf because at its best, this is a partnership. A lot of things that the legislators care about are delivered at the local level, and so we bring that to the table. In addition to we support the bill, we oppose the bill, we're going to implement this bill, and let us walk you through what we need to do. So with that, if there's anything we didn't get to, happy to respond to your questions, but grateful for your time today.
I really appreciate the conferences as well, because I know the effort, well, no, I don't know. I can sympathize with the effort that goes into those conferences and your team and the legwork, both for the summer and winter conference. Having the ability to rally around the administration and have those discussions are so valuable. And it doesn't stop at the conference. It goes throughout the year. But we have accomplished so much because we get into the discussion with Secretary Ellington, or with HCD, or with obviously Secretary Slater now. No, he's gone.
Ports.
Yeah, it was Secretary Slater, but you get the gist. And continue those. I mean, it was challenging times in the last one because of COVID, but it didn't stop, and I really appreciate that because we got a lot out of that. So.
I'd like to say I've always been a big supporter of MACo, coming from a council position in the city of Westminster with the MML, then moving here. It's just, you guys do so much for us. You really do. And then we go to the conference, like Commissioner Rossing just mentioned, all the networking we have, the people we can meet and talk to, take back phone numbers, go back and forth. But I also have to say, the last 2 years I've been on the legislative committee, even though I only got to go to Annapolis one time. But anyway, been on 2 years. It's so much more is done there. Your staff does tremendous work in preparing those bills and telling us what they're about and a little synopsis and so forth. It's eye-opening. It really is. And I really appreciate everything that's done there for the benefit of the counties. And like what's already mentioned, it's not for the Democratic counties or the Republican. It's for the counties. And that means so much. And if people, I just wish more people could get a firsthand view of what happens, because so much happens. And like you said, MACo's a big mover down there, and I love the support with amendments. I love that because you have influence on a bill that we think is probably going to pass anyway. But let's try to move it a little bit to what we think will be much better. So thank you for everything you've done. And I'm at the end of my 8 years, but thank you. I really do appreciate it, and I mean it.
Thank you.
You know, 8 years ago, I was a little skeptical of Mako. Today, I'm sold. What happens and what you guys do throughout the year is great, but we go to a conference, we get more done in 3 days there than we do at 6 months here. And it's all due to Mako and what you put together. My sincere thanks to you for what you do.
You're welcome. And the rest of the year, it's like, we come in here, do these updates. Of course, I get to do this for 1 year. He does it every year. And we talk about all the policy and the bills and things like that. But what you just said about the networking and getting things done amongst ourselves, but Mako and their staff, that's what they do the rest of the year. And you talk about what did we get done legislatively. What I want to say is what they get done without legislation, through the conversations, through the relationships that they have with the senators and delegates before maybe something ever even gets introduced, or something goes away, doesn't even go through the whole bill hearing process because of the relationships. And that is what all of this is about, is networking. And I may think completely different than a Montgomery County friend of mine, but because we have a relationship, because we respect one another, we're going to listen to each other, and that's how we come to compromise. And that's what I was saying at the top of this presentation, is I wish that other levels of government would do that. And I think we set a great example. So I'm glad you recognize all of that.
And we even listen to Steve and what he comes back with. He's done a great job
Yeah,
for the last 8
sometimes.
years. And
But,
he needs to be appreciated for that.
I just want to say, we've known each other a long time.
Yes, sir.
When I was in uniform, and it's just, so I've changed roles from the installation. I mean, that was 2010, 2011, to economic development to this. And each part of it has a role to play with Mako. And that's what we got to continue to promote, is that it's not just the 24 leadership, but it's really all encompassing, because this, has a focus on our sheriff's department, on all the men and women in blue, dealing with all men and women in red, in establishing the right legislation. It's important that we really try to continue to embrace that. So, but again, kudos. But Steve?
It's already been said. Again, you guys know how I and we feel about the efforts that you make to ensure that all of us, from Garrett to Wooster, know what's going on, and we do that, and we know that, and it's because of you. So again, to your staff, make sure you send our thanks to them. With the reimbursement bill, I got a frantic call from a guy by the name of Kevin Canali at about 5 o'clock on one evening, and said, "Steve, help here! You got to make a phone call." Yep. So we did, and the other thing that is remarkable to me is I've seen staff come and go at Mako over the last 8 years, and it never ceases to amaze me that you find folks that hit the ground running to replace those that left. And honestly, you do that. And I don't know where you find these people or what they're doing, but you do a tremendous job of just replacing and off they go. And that's huge too, because you develop some relationships with some of the staff, and then they're moving on, but yet you remember them. You see them because they're in other roles, and they show up at events, and we like that too, to see them. But you replace, Dom is a perfect example. I mean, you would think Dom had been there for 12 years, and he's new. He's the new guy, along with the other folks that are there. So I just don't want to pick him out of the crowd, but all of them do a remarkable job. And Laura, to you. I've watched the presidents come and go. Wilbur was amazing. I mean, what do you say about Wilbur? He's, it's Wilbur. But to you, congratulations for a very successful year. You've done a remarkable job. I know it's not over yet, but you've done an amazing job. You're a great leader, and Talbot County's going to be sorry to see you go. because I know you've made a huge difference down there. So
Appreciate that.
Godspeed to you and whatever. I'm going to see you between now and when you go
Oh, yeah.
a couple times, but Godspeed to you in wherever life takes you to. So
And I
thank
think
you.
these friendships, they last forever. I mean, I know it's gonna be like a big breakup in 6 months. Like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Because they do. I love this organization, and I think the people that really get involved and understand what it's all about, and they just fall in love with it. And then the relationships and the friendships, are gonna go on way beyond our term of office, and that's really, really special.
I love to see those folks come back at the conferences. John Barr comes walking back in. Hey, Steve. It's just
Yeah, it's
you're right. These relationships are remarkable. So thank you guys very much. So
If I could do one quick reflective comment, I'm very grateful for the nice things said about the association and our work and events and so forth, but I'm a father of school-age kids, and I'm going to say the same thing to you that I say to my daughters, and that is, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. I can send you to a lovely school, but you need to engage and max out your time there. And that's going to take coaching and teaching and involvement and so forth. So, I mean, the leadership of of MACO's affiliate structure is just completely littered with Carroll County leaders. I know we like to joke about Commissioner Wance, but in addition to being on our board, he also serves on a committee that guides the academy through the University of Maryland, that guides some of the most essential content for our conferences and events and so forth. Like making sure we get good training opportunities for the next wave of elected leaders is an important duty of ours, and having folks who have been through it and see the value in it help guide what's coming next. We're going to have to replace him soon in that role. We appreciate the time and effort, but when you say you get a ton out of those 3 days at the summer conference, that's because you're maxing it out, and people keep coming back. All those secretaries need to be there because it's worth their time too. So it builds on itself, and I love nothing better than all of that coming together. So thank you all for the kind words.
Absolutely. Why don't we get together, get a happy snap, and you guys be on your way.
Don't forget the shameless plug about the summer conference now.
They're coming. Right back in. Okay. I'm usually a back row kind of guy.
Up front and center.
Mr. Burke.
All right here. Not at Mr. Burke, right here. Thank you. Yeah, see that? Is that when you get mad or something?
Okay,
Is that for a rip it
let's
off?
move on to some body-worn cameras and in-car cameras. Body-worn and in-car cameras. So we got a thorn between two roses.
I'm sorry. What did you say,
So is
Sheriff?
this where we make fun of Steve Wance? Because I'm right with that guy. and I've never met him before. So I haven't, no.
I
Yeah.
got to take this phone call.
I'm sure you do.
I think
Okay,
you have
let's
a
see
no
what-
vote coming.
Apparently, yeah. Apparently, fortunately, 3 of them are staying.
He's still on priority, Carol.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
If you'll recall, last spring, the Carroll County Sheriff's Office applied for a congressional earmark to fund the equipment associated with the body-worn camera and in-car camera program here in the county. The Sheriff's Office was awarded that earmark in full, and it will be awarded through the Burn Justice Assistance Program. This earmark will, as I said, purchase body-worn cameras, in-car cameras, and then, of course, video storage and any other related equipment to launch this program. The total earmark awarded was $1,429,000. There is no required match for the equipment associated with this grant. Now I'll turn it over to Sheriff DeWeese and his staff to answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. We've spoken about this quite often, and we did a presentation on body-worn cameras, and I think there was some hope that the state would come off with some money in order to purchase this, and smartly, we collectively decided we would apply for this earmark through Congressman Raskin's office, and we're fortunate enough to get it. And so this will pay for everything hardware-wise for the next 5 years, in-car, body-worn storage. And if you remember, we spoke about how logistically to set up a unit like this, and so this is not an easy task. It's going to take us some time. Once the award is actually in our hands and we can start processing and procuring equipment, hiring personnel, setting up offices, those sort of things, it's going to take a while to do. But I think with this grant, it's going to be done right. We're talking about in-car cameras and body cameras. We're talking about a total system that will capture everything it needs to capture. And I sent the 5 commissioners and some other elected officials a incident that took place last week on body-worn camera, and explained to you that the decisions you make are so important when it comes to saving lives. And this woman's life was saved based on a taser, but you were able to see it on a body-worn camera. And so having this equipment is extremely vitally important to us. So moving into what Mako had to say, there's a lot of discussion about storage and how that evidence is moved over to the state's attorney's office, whether it's moved out to the public in general, and how it's processed. And there's an awful lot of work that needs to be done in order to get this up and running, but this is a major piece to the project.
What does this mean for video storage? What is it? What do we actually get for that? Or you did?
So you get all you get. So no, I mean, this is a total package of storage for 5 years for all the cameras that we're going to implement in-car and body-worn. And so after the 5 years, as we get closer to the end of this contract, we certainly have to discuss renewing it and modifying it. But this is a total package for storage and our ability. And it's a vault system that we are working through.
So basically it includes storage, the user licenses, warranty, support, all the equipment that goes in the cars, accessories that go with the body-worn cameras, and the support installation. So there's a lot of work to do. All of the in-car cameras need to be installed into the cars. It includes the cost for that as well. So going back to the last several years, commissioners, when you've all talked about looking at, well, what can we do, and especially Commissioner Rothstein, you know, multiple years. So my brain immediately went to, well, can we lock them in for 5 years for everything? And that's what this does. Also, it locks in, as you all know, prices escalate every day. It seems like something costs more. Technology certainly goes through the roof. So this also gives us refreshes for hardware as part of that, so we stay up to date. So all that is very important. And you try and look at all those benefits. There's a lot of benefits, short-term and long-term, in addition to providing all the cameras that, one, were going to be required, but also I think now it's just something that all of the deputies are looking forward to.
Yeah, and we just talked
getting.
about this outside. There's a 2025 mandate. We think we'll be a little bit ahead of the curve on the 2025 mandate, maybe by a year. But if we didn't act now, we'd have been behind the 8 ball. Just by merely saying you've got money and putting it in the budget for the 2025 year and then starting that year, we would have been behind significantly trying to implement the entire program.
Just one question. When you store data, do you have to store the whole 8 hours?
Everything. And the other thing is that, for example, I could have 4 or 5 deputies show up. The video I showed you last week,
Right.
There was multiple deputies and officers on that scene. Now, by 2025, every one of them will have a camera. And so the glory of this is that it'll synchronize all that data into one piece of footage that we can then sift through.
Right.
The issue is that once that data leaves our office, for example, and it goes to the state's attorney's office as part of a discovery process, before they release that video to a defense attorney for discovery, somebody in Alan Culver's office has to watch every second of that footage before they send it to a defense attorney or counsel. So there's a lot of processing when it comes to that many people showing up at a scene and that much data being transferred from one location to another. But the synchronization of the data is extremely important as well.
I mean, you have to keep card video of snow in a snowstorm for 3 hours?
I mean,
of-
it's all based on when we turn it on. So there's will be policy on when the camera comes on. So it's not constantly running on a 12-hour shift. It would wear the batteries out. And the system that we're buying, the reason we like the in-car camera system and the body worn in conjunction is because when we're standing at the window of a car speaking with a driver, the in-car camera system's capturing 20, 30 yards of data that may be not seen by that actual body worn camera footage. And so, but all that data stored and dealt with is just an incredible amount of video.
Just to keep perspective, this is specifically about accepting the award from the
Right.
Oh, I
federal
know.
earmark, not about what contract we're going to enter
got
into.
sidelined. We never-
Eventually,
Right. That's right.
Eventually,
Sheriff's
we've got to
Office
go
would-
through a procurement
Right.
for.
So I
for
just
that,
want
but we
to, I
haven't
don't want
talked
anyone
about
to
it.
think that we're not following proper procurement.
We'll come back for concurrence.
In that case, I move the Board of County Commissioners accept the congressional earmark for the
Basically,
sheriff's
shut up and
office.
Let's go, yeah.
Second.
I have an unrelated question, unrelated, because of the video that you showed. How far does the taser shoot accurately?
Obviously, the closer you are, the better it
Right.
is. But we have cartridges, believe it or not, that will dictate the distance. So 10 feet to 30 feet, depending on the cartridges that we put in. Now, if we're right up on someone, close contact, that doesn't really create the I guess the shock that we're looking for. So that 10 foot, and the video you saw yesterday is probably about 10 feet, puts the deputy in a lot of danger if someone turns around. But they did such a marvelous job with being able to distract and then be able to sneak up and use the taser and disengage that.
I mean, one last thing for Commissioner Wentz. Can you demonstrate?
Yeah, I mean, I did Eric and he's out, so I don't know if that's one thing.
Okay.
Yeah, you're out. Yeah.
Focusing on this.
We got new guns coming at some point in the future. I'll ask Steve about them.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
We'll
you.
update you as time goes by with how this program's working.
Okay. So, Mr. Burke, what do you want to talk about?
Good morning, Commissioners. We're here to talk about the resolution that would create a police accountability board and a charging committee. You'll recall we had a public hearing over 2 weeks ago. It all stems from a 2021 state law that was adopted, which repealed the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights and required counties to adopt a new regime for police, for adjudicating police misconduct cases. And the first aspect of it is you'll need to appoint a 5-person board called the Police Accountability Board. They're all appointed by the county commissioners, and you select a chairperson from those 5. 2 of those members are going to come from a list submitted by the Maryland Municipal League. And they are going to meet quarterly with the local police chiefs and discuss ways to improve community policing. And they'll actually receive the complaints of police misconduct and forward them to the local law enforcement agency that's impacted. The second is the Administrative Charging Committee, and you're going to appoint 2 members of those, 2 citizens to that board. And they are going to actually review the internal affairs reports coming from the sheriff's office or the local police department regarding a complaint of misconduct, and they're going to determine whether administrative charges would be appropriate. And if they consider them to be appropriate, they would convene a hearing. The officer could be represented. The officer gets to present his or her case. And they will come up with a recommendation to the local police chief or the sheriff as to discipline if that's warranted. And then the police officer then has a right to ask for a police trial board, which is sort of a last appeal. A police trial board would be convened by the local police department, of which the officer is a member. And there's also a member appointed by the county commissioners who has to be a retired judge or a sitting judge who is willing to sit on those police trial boards, which could be a pretty heavy lift. But that's what's required under the state law. At the public hearing, there was some discussion about the membership of the board and the background of the proposed board members. As is currently written, the resolution says that no members of either of these boards, the charging board or the police accountability board, can have a charge pending or have been convicted of a crime punishable by imprisonment exceeding 1 year. I went back, looked at the law. That's not required by the state law. That's required by the resolution. So it's not a mandate of state law. It's up to the board to decide whether they want to include it or not. A lot of the other counties have it in their resolutions, but it's entirely up to the board.
I mean, we had the conversation, last time. You were going one direction, I was going the
I know.
complete opposite. And I still believe we should not hamstring ourselves and have the ability for the Board of County Commissioners to select appropriately this group. I mean, if examples, someone gets convicted and sentenced for a year or two when they're 20 years old and they're now 55 and 60, and they could be a lawyer.
I don't think you want any of those on the board.
I don't think.
No, they won't be.
Okay, so they can't be a lawyer.
No.
They could be somebody else.
See,
Felons, yes, lawyers, no.
With that case,
so
with
you're
that
making
case-
my case.
So with that case, they could be somebody upstanding.
I know.
Okay?
You're making my case.
I just, I think that we should still have the ability to judge.
I am completely against having anyone on any of these boards that has ever had a conviction at all.
But we don't have that on the other boards and commissions, do we?
This is completely different. This is completely different. This is, first of all, I'm still not clear as to why we're doing this. Let me be clear. I'm having trouble with this. I really am. The whole thing.
Establishing the board?
Yes.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah.
So with that said, I'm challenged by every specific paragraph in this. And I think we need to be incredibly mindful of what we're saying here. And in my mind, to have somebody sitting on one of these boards that is going to potentially have the ability to judge our folks in blue that may have been convicted is I can't even fathom that. I just can't. Regardless of whether you've turned your life around, and look, there are tons of opportunities for folks to turn their life around. I get that. And there are a ton of opportunities for those folks to serve on a lot of things in our community. But on this, I have a problem with that. I just do. And that's where I am. You're going to be judging people or have the potential to make significant decisions on the impact of the careers of people that may have had an impact on your own life because you did something that you shouldn't have done. And that does not make sense to me.
I have a tendency to agree with you, Commissioner Wance. This is about a person's livelihood. This is they're really judging the outcome of what's going to happen. And the people on this board have to have impeccable backgrounds, as far as I'm concerned, as far as never being convicted, not having a run-in with law enforcement. That can be a bias right there, and that sets up a perfect. A person on this board sets up a perfect challenge to appeal any decision made by this board, by the people serving on it. So I really don't see why we'd even question putting people on this board that would be questionable to begin with. Yes, I believe people can turn around, and there's plenty of opportunities for them to do other things in the county. But for but dealing with people's livelihood here, and this is, I mean, I don't even see the value of having this, other than we'll lose funding from the state if we don't do it. But I think it's handled right now in-house. This whole law does not pertain to Carroll County as we have it, and I don't see the value of it, but we have to have it. So I want the best people possible on this board.
I think, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Find an arbitrator on who gets on the board as the Board of Commissioners.
Right.
So I'm hoping that we have more than 5 people apply for the board.
Right.
So if there's 15 or 20, doubtful, but let's say we have 7 or 8 that apply for the board, then the Board of Commissioners will decide who actually makes the board.
Right.
Now, I have to somewhat agree with Commissioner Rothstein here that if you've paid your due, you've been convicted, you've been in prison or whatever, but it's over. You're done your parole and everything else. If you want to apply for the board, you should be able to apply for it. Now, in my opinion, if you're applying for the board and you have that background and there's 5 other people that don't, okay, I'm probably not putting you on that board, because as the Board of Commissioners, we're the final arbitrator. Now, I won't be there because I don't want, well, maybe for the first one, but I just think you should allow them to have the chance to apply, and then the Board of Commissioners makes a decision. It's just
Yeah, no, so I'm in agreement with the two of you, and I expect also Commissioner Frazier, that this does not represent Carroll County, and we don't necessarily want this to take, place. And I want to be very clear about that. But since we are directed to, we have to come up with the best solution. But yeah, I agree that this does not pertain to Carroll County, and I'm very confident in our men and women in blue in the county doing the right things. It's not just the individual that has been imprisoned and many years have gone by, but it's also siblings and loved ones and others that could be skewed and prejudicial to, the Sheriff's Department and men and women in blue. And so if we're starting with one, then are we going to be looking at others? And kind of like what Commissioner Frazier said, is we have the ability to ask those questions. And, were you ever sentenced, and were you ever convicted? Were you ever put into jail? Do you have a loved one that was? And, that would counter to, a decision that I would say, yeah, you're probably not the right individual for a board like this. Check out the Parks and Recs.
We shouldn't even get to that point.
So in my mind,
Yeah.
you shouldn't even allow the opportunity for that to occur.
But
You
with
shouldn't leave that
siblings?
up to
Yeah.
5 individuals to say, well, we've got 5, but the one, now they were in prison, 10 years ago for 6 months, but we need them because we only got 4 applicants and they're the 5th. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. You should nip this and say, if you have ever, you are not eligible for this. Period.
I don't agree.
Because they could, the potential, once again, my argument here is, you're messing with the career of a person, but yet you've been part of that. You've been a part of that, and I don't care when it is or how long you've been reformed or whatever. It just speaks of creating a level of challenge here that we shouldn't be putting on this board. It does. This should be people that have impeccable backgrounds, and trust me, we're going to have trouble finding folks for these boards. I know that. But there are a ton of people out there who have had clean, impeccable lives that should be serving on this.
That's
not
98%
a
of
person who,
citizens.
yeah, I did that, but there's other opportunities for folks. And I'm not here speaking against those that are able to reform their lives. That has nothing to do with this, because, good grief, Dennis, you and I were at the candlelight vigil the other night, and we've been to places where the drug court and people have changed their lives, and absolutely that's fantastic, and we provide that opportunity in this county for that to occur. And I say yes to that, and go forth and do what you can for your community, and many of them are. But in this instance, when it's about serious issues, and that's the other thing. This isn't going to just be your fly-by-night issues that occur here. These are going to be serious incidents when they get to this level. And you want someone that could possibly be on there that had a problem however many years ago. I just can't. I can't see that. I just
I don't know.
can't.
I'm going. I
They
understand.
shouldn't even be able to apply
But-
at all.
Then if we're going to go there, we got to take out, again, those that have loved ones or close friends or anyone else that had been skewed because of that, because that's what happens. You know, I want to take as much of the prejudicial piece out of it, but that's again where the Board of Commissioners come in the appointment.
Yeah, I want to steer away from the word prejudice because that's not what I'm saying here. I'm
No,
I'm
not prejudicial in the sense that
Okay, well-
what you're saying. I mean, I'm not sure what a better word would be.
Well, I don't know, but we're kind of going
skewed,
down a lane here that I don't want to go down.
No, but it's not prejudice in any sort of other context, but maybe skewed. Okay, I'll use that
Yeah,
word.
that-
Unless
that- yeah, I
Roberta,
think-
you got a big word I can use?
Sorry, I missed what you said. I'm dealing with something else.
Okay, Tim, you got
Multitasking.
another.
I don't- I don't
What's
know.
another word I can use?
You're referring to anti-police bias, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, anti-police bias.
That's good.
Okay.
Can do,
Go ahead.
do we know? I guess we don't because many of the other jurisdictions are in the beginning stages or soon to be. I know Anne Arundel's already put some folks on there or started.
Frederick.
Do we know the jurisdictions? What the other jurisdictions have they? You said they have this in there. Do we know or don't know?
I can tell you Charles County has it, Calvert County has it. I could look at the other ones as well.
They allow folks that have had a year or less of incarceration to be on there, or
No,
you're
no,
saying
they-
that they
No, they
said
have this.
absolutely nothing comes to that.
That language, that language is in Calvert and Charles County's resolution.
What's your favorite? Is in those counties.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me ask you, on a military review board, who sits on it?
Peers.
Peers.
It's a combination of peers and leaders, officers, and.
But if they've
yeah.
been there before themselves, are they allowed to serve on that board?
They're reviewed before they can sit on that board.
Yeah.
I mean, and yeah, it's just like any other panel.
Put yourself in the position, if
Yeah.
you are before that board,
Right.
who do you want on that board? You want your peers, you want people who probably think the way you do and want things to be done by the book.
Absolutely. But that's why you have the ability to determine the panel, just like a jury. You have the ability to determine the peers that are going before that,
Which is the thing that scares me the most
that's.
because
You're-
I don't think you should. I don't think you should even be presented with the possibility of choosing someone who's had that occur. Why put that on a commissioner? Just right out of the gate say, if this occurred in your life, you're not eligible. Then you don't have to put commissioners, whoever they are, in the precarious situation of, oh boy, well, gosh, this guy, well, it's been 30 years ago. Well, no.
Yeah, but
You're also making the assumption that if someone was convicted and spent up to a year in jail, that they're going to be prejudiced against the police department or against the police or correction.
Is there a chance they could be?
There's a chance, but there's also, if you look at the people that we see go through drug court and all, they're very grateful to Judge Hecker and everybody that's worked with them, and they're advocates.
Okay, that's
You can have
completely different.
You can have the same
That's
thing
just
happen
different.
here if you go through the.
I'm
I mean,
sorry,
I don't
it's
know. I've never
different.
been in prison, but if I turn my life around, and I might be thankful for the people that got me to turn my life around.
why is it different?
And I don't
Because-
know.
Because you're making, you have the potential to make a serious decision about the career of those that are in law enforcement.
Correct.
Those folks that are they're feeling good about the drug court and Judge Hecker, yay, and all of that. Wonderful, that's great, but they're not making decisions on careers of people in one of the most prestigious careers in this country. I say one of because I happen to be a part of another, but it's also prestigious. Anyway, it bothers me that this would even be a possibility, and I don't think it's respectful to have a commissioner board have that in front of them to make that decision. Suppose it would go that way, and there would be some negative thoughts or concerns. Can you imagine how that commissioner board would feel when they said, oh gosh, well, we put them on there. Maybe we shouldn't have done that. In this way, you put people on there that have no possibility at all to have that in their mind because they haven't been involved in that kind of activity.
They do have that possibility. I mean,
Well, I know they do, but at least this isn't a part of their life. That's.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many people out there
This-
that have never had the opportunity.
This board has to be above reproach.
That's what I say.
I'll say this. Since we're going to vote on this today, there's only 4 of us here. I don't want to go 2-2 and delay it. I'll go along with Commissioner Wanson Weaver on this. Sorry, Ed, but if I want to air on air.
No, don't be sorry, and I'm not.
If there was all 5 here, I'd still argue my side because it could be 3-2, and I'm okay with that. But there's only 4 of us here. It looks like it might go 2-2. I don't think that's. I think we want to move forward with this because we're by the state of Maryland have to get this moved forward and get it done by July 1st. I see your side. I do. I also see our side, but I rather err on your side than mine, to be very frank.
And now you're making my case more.
I'm going along with you.
No. But you're making my case.
I'm not going along with him anymore.
Because you wouldn't want to put someone in that position. You see the benefits of not having that.
I do. I
Hey,
do see
Wance,
it.
quit selling.
Yeah, once you.
Well, I'm not selling. I'm trying.
Once you make the
Once
sale.
I have my car keys, I'm getting out of here. You don't have to keep some in the car.
And it's
I want to
I
be. I want to
understand.
be clear here. I'm being respectful of all of those again, and I don't want to make this sound as if I've got a negative outlook about those that have had a problem that have turned their lives around. There's a ton of them out there,
Yes,
and
there are.
they're making great strides in their personal life and in their community and doing some wonderful things. But this board, I mean the name of the boards themselves, Police Accountability, Police Administrative Charging Committee. Come on. It's got to be people that don't have this in their background. And I'm done selling.
I'd like to move we strike that from this.
Wait.
Can we? No.
Move we what?
Okay, we don't have to do anything at this time, right?
No, all you have to do is I'll make the motion the board adopt the proposed resolution creating the Police Accountability Board and Administrative Charging Committee.
Just to be clear, if you go with this motion, it will include the restriction on membership of the committee. Do you understand?
Which is what you're wanting.
It's
Yeah.
it's in there, Dick.
Yeah, okay, just make
Yeah.
sure. I didn't like the way it was worded. Thank you.
I don't like the way it's worded either. The
Okay, did you get
Okay,
a
so
second?
I got a motion.
didn't
Is
get a
there a second?
Second.
Okay, so I got a motion. I got a
Hoping
second.
I get a second.
I will finish the discussion before we go to a vote. The intent here is, one, like you shared early on, I'm a bit disturbed that this board is even being considered and that the state is causing us to commit
Oh.
the county to establishing this board.
And debate these things.
And that's pretty frustrating that we're even running down this road, but we're directed to. I don't think we need to. I have full confidence in our sheriff's department along with the municipalities and the law enforcement in Carroll County. I do want it to represent I do want it to represent the best of Carroll County, just like we do with all boards and commissions. Although I may not agree with, what you're saying, I understand why you're saying it and I respect it. I believe that there are many other ways that folks are skewed, and that concerns me. So I don't like diversifying ourselves in a place where we don't need to be diversified and being preached to on saying, well, you must have this or you must have that. I mean, that's what Carroll County makes us so good, is we know ourselves better than anyone else. And I know in another jurisdiction, they're saying, well, we want, somebody from this diversity or somebody from that diversity or a third generation. I'm like, knock that off. We don't want that. Let us determine what we want for Carroll County.
We have to set a budget for this.
Ed, I'm not disagreeing with
Yeah,
you at all. I
so-
understand that. But I also firmly believe, and I might be way off on this, but I firmly believe that for most that are involved in law enforcement, allowing this to be in there would be disrespectful to their careers and to their lives. I might be way off on that, but I don't think I am.
I don't think so either.
And I want the best, you know that. I'm public safety through and through. I want the best people to be on these unnecessary boards. And that means folks that have never had an issue. I'm going to stop. I think I already said
Okay. Is there any further?
I withdraw my, I'm just kidding.
Wait, what?
Go, never
You know,
mind.
you and I have to try to get along. You know that, right?
Is there any further discussion on this as written? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Aye. Okay, 3-1, it carries.
On
What?
page two,
There's
just
more?
before we leave this topic, on page 2 of your handout, you'll note it from Michael Sanderson and the Association of Counties. There was a last-minute change to the Police Accountability Board statute, which allows for, it says clarifies the composition of bi-county trial boards for police disciplinary matters. The police chief of Mount Airy contacted me and said, rather than go under the jurisdiction of the state, they would like to fall under our Police Accountability Board for the town of Mount Airy, which is, as you know, split by partially in Frederick and partially in Carroll County. I said I would run it by the board. I think it makes sense.
I do as well.
So all of Mount Airy would come under this?
Yes, they would be under our Police Accountability Board.
Wow.
So even if the action occurred in Frederick County?
It would come under ours. So are we annexing part of Mount Airy?
This, we
I
would
don't
have
think
to
we get
do,
that.
we would have to do some sort of,
Does it come with funding? I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say, we have to set the budget for this, and
there would have to be a memorandum of understanding between the counties to make this work, and the town as well as, so. I said I would run it by before you even
I think
explored
it's
it.
a unifying way of doing it, and someone, as opposed to splitting, makes sense. And they better, I believe they'll be more trustworthy with our approach, not dissing anybody else, but I think, yeah. So I think it's a good idea. I mean, do we need
You need
an action on this, or?
No, I'm going to come back to you with something, an MOU or something memorializing that if we can reach an agreement. So I just wanted to run it by you before we started on that.
They asked us and they didn't ask Frederick County?
Pardon me?
They didn't ask Frederick County?
They did not ask, to my knowledge, they did not ask
Okay.
Frederick County.
I thought maybe they would ask both and see which one said yes. I don't know. All right.
Okay, now let's talk about all the noise happening in Carroll County.
I'm leaving.
No, you're not. Stay here.
You ain't leaving nowhere. Mr. Burke.
Commissioners, we had a public hearing several weeks ago on a proposal that would repeal the current noise ordinance and replace it with the version you have in front of you. And that would prohibit unreasonably loud noise in areas where residential uses are permitted. So that would include your conservation, ag zone, residential zones as well. There's exemptions for the use of agriculture, for schools, for carnivals, philanthropic carnivals and the like, and of course law enforcement and garbage trucks. It also says between the hours of 10 and 7, you cannot use amplified noise, which creates, again, an unreasonably loud noise, which takes into account the location and the impact on the neighbors, and unreasonably disturbs the health, safety, and peace of persons of ordinary sensitivity. So at the public hearing, you had a comment from an individual that wanted you to retain the current language regarding off-the-road recreational vehicles, including go-karts, ATVs, snowmobiles. They wanted you to retain the current 300-foot setback from the neighboring residences or the associated curtilage, that's the front porch, front yard of neighborhood residents. They wanted to retain that 300-foot setback. Again, that wouldn't apply to use of agricultural equipment or fire, military, governmental purpose equipment. So I inserted new language on page 2 that would take the language from the old noise ordinance and incorporate that with regard to the 300-foot setback for off-the-road vehicles in this noise ordinance.
Can I ask the sheriff if he can come up here for a sec? Because I think this pertains. You and I had a conversation the other day about parking and the challenge in enforcement of parking violations. And in the code, it says that you may, ticket or something like that, to that sense. My concern is this type of ordinance can become very overwhelming, and the ability to enforce this ordinance is going to come down to you, and the services you and your deputies provide.
So we're always governed by discretion. And so when we talked about that particular parking issue,
Yeah.
there was a lot of discretion that goes into
Right.
to making sure that there's compliance there. And so citing someone or warning someone are two different things to make sure that we get compliance that way. I don't think the way this is written is going to be a tremendous hindrance on us. We've always been able to go out and mitigate the majority of these noise complaints without even having any worry of civilly citing someone. So I just simply don't think that this is going to be a tremendous burden. The Commissioner Wance and I talked about the setback, and that was based on I think a woman came in here about her farm, and we're not against that at all. I think it was appropriate to put that back in there and leave it there. The complaints that we get the most right now are right now I'm dealing with a complaint in Eldersburg that there's some housing that's being built, and it's not that that equipment's being fired up before 7. It's just that workers need to get to these sites
Right.
before 7 and get themselves prepared, knowing that at 7 they're going to fire up equipment and move it on.
Yeah.
And so sometimes progress, even though it takes a little bit of time, disturbs people, and we have to go down and mitigate those things. But overall,
Yeah.
I simply don't think that this ordinance is going to be a tremendous hindrance for us to go out and enforce.
Okay.
No more, the other one was, I think, a bigger hindrance because we had meters that were in there and the inability to try and measure.
Oh, no, I
noise.
definitely agree with that. I'm just thinking, parking, even speeding when people keep calling, so, because you're stretched and you can only do so much. And now you got this on top of those.
I think this is just a better ordinance for us to navigate from. I do.
Good.
I think it cleans things up for us.
Okay.
It just cleans things up for us. I don't believe it's going to be that big of an issue for us.
So it's not going
go out and
to
work
create
through.
additional expectations from the community that you're going to be,
No.
out there,
No, I mean, obviously, we haven't started the whole venue issue yet this year, and the concerts, the outdoor concerts. But regardless of whether you put an ordinance in place or not, those are issues we're still going to have to respond to
Yeah.
and handle and deal with. So, no. Thank God we're in Carroll County. All I have to deal with is parking complaints and noise issues. I mean, it could be a lot worse, and so we respond efficiently and quickly and try and handle it without real enforcement, just mitigating it. So.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. Any other questions or?
Now,
comments?
from a legalese standpoint, when something says you may not, should it say you shall not? I'm just asking to the two attorneys in the room, unless there's a few others.
If it's an
Can you get
ordinance,
it on the
I would
internet
think
yet?
it
I don't think you
it
can.
should say shall. If it's regulation, it can say may.
How do you, have you
So
ever
you
come
can
up with
ask-
that, Jim?
I
or
don't know
not?
where you,
You could put shall in,
says shall.
but it does take some discretion from us if
It
you
does.
put shall.
So-
There are criminal laws that say shall that we have no discretion. A lot of them are protective orders, domestic violence things, those sort of things that.
Okay.
So when you throw shall in there, it does bind us a little bit. And
Okay, so under prohibitions, Article C, a person may not. And then in Section 3, A, it says a person may not. Shouldn't it be shall not, is what I was wondering.
think
I don't,
You want the discretion of May, right?
Yeah, I think we always have the discretion.
so you want the may?
I think may is more appropriate than
Okay.
shall, yes.
And yeah,
I'm not gonna be out there, I'm only gonna get the calls, you are, so I wanna make
Right.
sure that you have what you think is the teeth to be able to do whatever here.
Yeah. As long as it's in an ordinance and we're responding to a legitimate complaint, may gives us the teeth
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah.
Shall takes it out of our discretionary ability when
Right.
it could be something that is really can be easily handled by just responding out and using good discretion.
and that's exactly why I wanted the sheriff to come up, because with the parking, it says may. And somebody reached out to me and said, somebody's got to do something about this. And, we talked about this, and allowing the discretion to the sheriff about parking violations is very important because they're all over the place. So,
And
yeah.
parking's not traditionally something we go out and write tickets for.
Right.
And it's usually in a particular area where we're having a lot of problems, whether it's on a roadway or a park. And
Right.
so what Colonel Hart and I have to do regularly is make sure that deputies understand that this is the regulation that allows you to make that enforcement effort.
Right.
But it is a discretionary thing. And so we've been just so lucky to be able to handle these issues without really going to enforcement. So.
Okay. Any other questions or?
Other than spring has sprung.
It has, and so, yeah, we'll see what that brings.
Yeah, I know, okay.
Okay.
I'll make the motion the board adopt the proposed revision and the replacement of the Carroll County noise ordinance.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on this? Seeing here none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks again, Sheriff.
Hey, Sheriff, nice prayer breakfast
That
this
was
morning.
wonderful.
Well, I appreciate everybody being here.
Thank you.
You needed this today.
You needed it more than I did. Yep. I know you did.
Okay, let's talk about Warfieldsburg Road head wall replacement.
Excuse me.
We shall be talking about this. We may.
We may. Can I say it, we hope? No.
No. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. The Office of Procurement, in conjunction with the Bureau of Engineering, requests your approval to award a contract for the Warfieldsburg Road head wall replacement to SMI Services Incorporated in the amount of $169,719. This project consists of extending the existing 60-inch RCP by 4 foot, construction of a new end wall stream diversion and maintenance of stream flow, traffic detours, repair damaged pavement and shoulder, stabilization of all disturbed areas. This amount is within the approved budget and no additional funds will be necessary.
This work is necessary to repair the outlet end of an existing 60-inch culvert pipe. Currently, we have some bank stabilization holding the existing bank and roadway in place. We're going to extend the pipe, as was mentioned, by 4 feet, place a new end wall, which is higher and wider, to stabilize that roadway. We'll also be lining the existing pipe and stabilizing the inlet end wall with some shotcrete. This will require the roadway to be closed for approximately 2 weeks, weather permitting, and we're going to do this when school is out of session. SMI Services has performed similar work in other Maryland counties, and we've received some favorable references for them.
There's enough detours like Nicodemus and others.
Yeah, Widow 32 and
Yeah.
27.
And okay. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion that we award the contract for Warfieldsburg Road head wall replacement to SMI for $169,719.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. Any discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Let's-
Hey, Chris, while you're in the room, and
Yes,
Doug,
sir.
is, you recently have been working on the horse and buggy signs for the Amish. I know it's not, I just had open meetings training, so I know it's not on the agenda, but I want to thank you for taking that proactive approach up there and meeting with those fine folks. There's actually a meeting here this afternoon on another issue where they're going to be some of those folks are going to be coming in. But sometimes it's a little challenging when you're working with them because they have a different way of looking at things and whatever. But you did an awesome job, and I think it will be very beneficial. I hope people pay attention to those signs. Could you make them pink?
No, unfortunately, they need to be yellow.
Okay, all right. I thought I'd give it a shot.
It's
but-
one of those shalls in the MUTCD. It says it shall be
Okay,
yellow.
fine. But thank you both
Yes.
for being a part of that, and we look forward to that.
Thank
So
you. We learned a lot. It was very enjoyable working with them.
excellent. Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Letter of intent, what is this? All I have is letter of intent. Office of Procurement, Fleet Management,
Letter of intent.
okay.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
We are here to ask your approval to send Heritage, I never can pronounce that right, Fleet Services a letter of intent to purchase 8 new Chevrolet Tahoe utility vehicles at an estimated cost of $325,608. These vehicles will be purchased from the State of Maryland contract, which was competitively bid, and this letter of intent will allow Hertridge Fleet Services to put these vehicles on their assembly schedule, which will reduce the wait time. This amount was requested in the FY23 budget, and no additional funds should be necessary. And I will turn it over to Reed to give you any details about the vehicles.
So GM has actually indicated that they are accepting orders for the Tahoe on May 19th, and it's expected that they're going to close the ordering window within a couple days.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because GM has not established pricing for these vehicles yet, and they cannot provide an ETA for them. But they're telling all the dealers you have to have your orders in on May 19th. So with that being the situation, we would like to supply Hertrick with the letter of intent, so that way they can go ahead and designate or set aside 8 of these for Carroll County government. And really, it's an assurance for us that we know that we can purchase these vehicles when that time comes.
Right.
Obviously, we don't have FY23 budget funds right now. So when we do in July, and I can come to you with exact pricing and more information on the order, we'll be looking for your final approval to actually purchase the vehicles. But at this moment, we really just need the letter of intent. So that way, we know when we need to, we can buy these vehicles.
Okay, that's great. $40,000 for each vehicle.
Yeah, it's about $40,000 per vehicle.
Wow.
So you're thinking this amount will cover the cost of all 8?
Yeah, we believe that is an accurate estimate.
Okay.
We had a couple more.
Some of the vehicles, so 4 of them will be for fire and EMS.
Right.
3 for the sheriff's department, 1 for the state's attorney's office. So obviously the fire and EMS department vehicles and the sheriff's will require some upfitting and outfitting.
Right.
So that will affect the total price. But yes, the price of the vehicle is about $40,000.
Yeah, wow.
So I guess I'll ask what I asked last time you were in here.
Is it enough? So this is what we have set aside in the budget. I believe this is everything that we will need. For fire and EMS, it's 4 of them. 1 of them is a spare or a backup chase vehicle, as Director Robinson has described. The sheriff's department vehicles, we have 3 Tahoes in their fleet that we need to replace, and 1 in the state's attorney. So I don't see anything in the future happening where we would need to increase that amount. So I'm pretty confident that 8 of the Chevy Tahoe is what we will need for FY23.
2 questions often asked. Is it enough, especially when you're getting, pricing? And then also, for me, a lot of times is extended years, warranties, and can we get price discounts for extended years, as opposed to just one-time buys. So being prepared for those are appreciative. So
Yes, sir.
yeah, wow.
Okay, I guess I'm good with 8. 10's a better number, but 8 I guess is fine. I mean, I just want to make sure, that's all.
I understand.
Because of the volatility of the industry right
market,
now.
yeah.
It's just it's nuts.
Yep.
Even still, when you go to these dealers and drive by them, there's nothing on the lots.
Right.
There's a few things, but and I go by Hertrick a lot in my travels because I go by about 4 of them. And they don't have a whole lot of vehicles either. So I don't know. I want to make sure we're asking for enough. And
Yeah.
if you're confident, then I'm good.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, well then I'll make the motion that we approve the Office of Procurement to issue a strong letter of intent to Hertrick for the impending purchase of 8 Chevy Tahoes at the estimated cost of $325,608.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion in 2 seconds. No further discussion. All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, let's talk about Bureau of Roads. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bureau of Roads approving to use a term contract to reline 3 stormwater drainage systems. Okay, in Finksburg.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Morning.
Kathy Verts, our Roads Administrative Supervisor, and I are here before you this morning to seek your approval to use a term contract to reline 3, as you said, Commissioners, stormwater drainage system pipes using a cured-in-place fiberglass liner process near Jeffrey Lurie South Drive and Gracie Drive. Kathy will provide you the details on exactly what we're doing there, and then we'll be available to answer any questions that you have.
Good morning, Commissioners. We plan to line 3 separate pipes. One is a 48-foot long by 24-inch diameter pipe. One is 22-foot long and 15-inch in diameter, and the third pipe is 42-foot long and 24 inches in diameter. They all 3 meet into a manhole area at the intersection, and all 3 are rotted in the bottom and causing the road to sink.
So we have Pleasance Construction on term, and they have provided a quote for us of $33,310. This was competitively, their term was competitively bid and awarded, and funding is currently available in our budget for this project. We won't require any additional permits from MDE because of where this is at and the need. The road will remain open during construction, and we estimate that, weather permitting, this will take about 3 working days.
I'll move the Board of Commissioners approve the Bureau of Roads Operations to install a cured-in-place fiberglass liner in the failing stormwater drainage system pipes near the intersection of Jeffrey Lurie South Drive and Gracie Drive in Finksburg for $33,310.35.
That was very well said. That was very well said. I just want to say, I'll second that.
35 cents.
Motion, I got a second. Any discussion on this one? Seeing here none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you very
Have
much.
a good day.
And thank you for the buggy sign yesterday, Doug.
Sure. Chris, do we have any open comment? Public comment?
No one on the line.
Thank you very much. Anything for open admin? Yes. We're going into closed after this. Closed admin after this?
Yeah, but
Okay.
for open, next Tuesday, May 10th, I can't believe it's May 10th already, next Tuesday, you have a joint meeting with the Board of Education in the afternoon. It's the delayed one from a couple weeks ago. They want to discuss 2 things, the FY23 operating budget and the state CIP funding. When Mr. Zaleski was going over the budget presentation a week or 2 ago, you, Commissioner Frazier, mentioned you wanted to talk with the board, with the Board of Education about how they're going to use their increased funding, $10.5 million that they're getting from the state.
Right, it's earmarked for some particular things. I'd just like to know what it's earmarked for. Yeah.
Okay. And then I didn't know if we had any other agenda items that we wanted to address.
What time is that?
Oh, you had to ask.
3
It's the
o'clock.
10th.
It's 3 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. The
On
10th.
Yep.
3
Then we'll
o'clock
get-
on the 10th, and at 7 o'clock, we have the
Yeah. We have
Commissioner
the,
open.
okay,
The public hearing
right.
for the budget.
Some reason it wasn't on.
Any other topics?
It should be in your calendar. It will be after you read this through.
Now it's on my calendar. Any topics?
No, I don't, can't
Okay.
think of anything.
Capital projects?
I mean, I know they want to talk about operating budget.
Yeah.
I don't know what they want to talk about.
Yeah, there are two topics where
They want
the
more.
operating budget and the
bad idea.
state CIP funding.
They want more money,
Are
right?
they gonna, the superintendent, status, are they closing, they're closing in on that, aren't they? They haven't identified. but
Monday,
No,
they're
no.
having a breakfast.
That's what it is, and they invited us or something.
Monday at 8 o'clock.
They want to hear your ideas about
Yeah.
kinds of questions and things, I think, for
Oh,
the
it's not
interviews.
with-
No, the Monday
No, no.
breakfast is just for you to bring 2 questions to them so they can ask the questions for the superintendent's search, is my understanding.
Correct.
Well, that's the way
No?
the email was.
That's what I
Yep.
I heard our office staff check that out, and that's what I was
You're
told.
asking some questions here to the possible.
No.
No.
What now?
The
These
candidates
possibles will not be there.
won't be there. It's just what questions would the Board of County Commissioners like to ask the candidates if they were to?
I don't think so. But
Well, that's what I think it was.
Yeah.
'Cause I asked about that.
Superintendent search focus group.
he wants you to bring 2 to 3 questions
Right.
to ask.
Yeah, it's
the
a
group-
it's a focus group.
So the group can ask the questions of the superintendent of the candidates. That's what this is for. The candidates will not be there at this breakfast.
That's what we've been told.
I think you're wrong on that one, but
I mean, I could be, but I did have it checked. I believe in our competent staff.
And is this, if we were going to this, is this an open meeting over there?
I'd know.
At the BOE?
Which one?
Well,
At
you're talking about
8
the breakfast?
Yeah.
No, I don't believe,
Okay.
I don't believe it is. I don't know.
it's not
It's
an
not
open
our
meeting.
meeting, so it's
Okay, so
not our,
then,
it's up to them.
after a recent upgrade to my open meetings training,
Yeah.
I'm questioning more than 2 of us
Right.
being in the room.
So, when you're invited, it's a different story, when it's their meeting. So it's their
But that means we don't
responsibility.
talk, or?
Say that again?
Yeah, because I'm confused at the same thing.
Yeah, I don't understand what this is, and I don't.
They invited you to the meeting. It's up to them to comply with the open meetings law.
Correct.
Not us?
You're just in the audience, you're participants.
Participants as commissioners, participants as?
Yeah.
Commissioners.
But you can do that. You're invited to meetings all over the place, and it's their, if,
You're probably not, but I am.
well, yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay.
All right.
8 o'clock in the Board of Ed, because that'll be interesting at least.
Well, maybe we could get some verification as to what exactly this meeting is,
Yeah.
because it reads both ways. I mean, I've got the email in front of me. Would you check if the commissioners are available to attend a superintendent search focus group meeting on Monday, May the 9th? Breakfast will be provided. Okay, a focus group means that you're concentrating on coming up with, in my mind, questions for candidates. But then the next paragraph says, I would ask each of the commissioners to have 2 to 3 questions prepared for the candidate. So that reads that the candidate is actually going to be in the room.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I
could we
wanna
get
say again,
verification?
I'm asking.
I did
Okay.
ask Kathy to check into this, and she came back to me with candidates will not be in the room. You're just going to be bringing your questions in.
Yeah. Yeah, and we had that conversation because we were like, well, we could just be asked for the questions and just submit them, if that's, but hey, you take a free breakfast, maybe.
Get to eat breakfast here.
Yeah, you don't get to eat breakfast.
Going back to.
But going back to
the
the
joint Board of Ed meeting, are there any topics that we can think of that we want to highlight. I mean, there'll be a discussion. There always is, but it's always good if we have something. I mean, I'll continue to talk about redistricting because I still don't have,
Comprehensive redistricting.
comprehensive redistricting.
So that committee's been meeting, and they're making a presentation to the Board of Education. Linda and Laura Matthias are on it, and I met with Linda yesterday, and I'm trying to think of the date that they're having the presentation to the board. Does the Board of Education have a meeting on the 11th of May? Would that be their normal meeting?
It's a Wednesday.
That's a Wednesday.
They're just area focus groups on redistricting, correct?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I mean, they didn't look at comprehensive.
No.
No,
They was
it's just
looking
for
at
the southern.
Yes.
Spot
exactly.
redistricting.
Yeah, but
Across the southern.
still comes under the Board of Education's responsibility. So from the commissioners, having that on agenda for an update on the status of comprehensive redistricting, Carroll County. I mean, I know there's meetings, but,
Yeah, as I say, I believe they're gonna be making a presentation to
Right.
and I think it's the 11th.
And one ongoing thing I think we really need to, I know Ted's dealing with the Board of Ed on, is the fact that we have designated funding for the improvements they're moving on. We don't have the designated funding to move at the rate they want to go with improvements on
Oh,
buildings.
Well, they have on their list state CIP funding, which would cover that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I think we need to
Because the way they,
always reinforce the fact that, our funding is not going to keep up with the plans they have in place with the schools they're building, and yet they need to keep moving ahead with 40 buildings to maintain. So it's a
right.
it's a tough situation.
Yep. Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, if you think of anything else, we have, a day or two to add it to the list, but that helps. I appreciate it. I'll pass that on to the Board of Education. It's an away game, so you'll be over there. That's it for me. Thanks. And if I get the answer to our question about the Monday meeting, I will tell you as soon as I get it.
Okay.
okay. Anything else for open admin? Hey, come on up. Let's do agendas, then we're gonna gavel into recess and go into closed. So, May 9th, we have the focus group breakfast we just talked about, 8 o'clock over in the Board of Education boardroom. I will also be attending that. 8 o'clock. The Transit Advisory Council at 3 p.m. Commissioner Frazier will be
I'm pretty sure that's been canceled.
probably canceled, but we'll ensure.
Check
Okay.
on that. I'm pretty sure I got it.
Tuesday, May
notification about
10th, we have the Board of Education joint meeting over at the Board of Education boardroom at 3 p.m. where we all will be attending. At 7 p.m. that evening at the Carroll Arts Center is the FY23 proposed budget public hearing. On Wednesday, we have Employee Appreciation Day over at the Ag Center, where all 5 of us will be attending.
If I may, remember that starts, it's been 2 years since we've done this, so just as a reminder, it starts with the recognition ceremony at 9, and then the open to all employees, I believe, starts at 11, maybe 10:30, something like that. I think it's 11.
Okay. And then at 1 p.m., the students and friends of Robert Moton High School, where I will be attending with Commissioner Frazier and Commissioner Wance. Carroll County Board of Education, Commissioner Frazier will be attending at 5 p.m. May 11th. At 6:30 p.m., the annual Career Connections Banquet, and Commissioner Boucher will be attending. On Thursday, we have open session. We will talk about the workforce development grants and a memorandum of understanding to Division of Rehab Services, DOORS. Okay. Behavioral Health Services briefing from Ms. Steckel. She'll stay on board and talk about the FY23 Senior Center operating funds grant. Then our comptroller will be talking about banking and direct deposit services. We will then talk about an option to purchase the Stephen R. Booz property through our county program. And then we will go into closed for land acquisition. On Friday at 10:30, the 15th Annual Fallen Heroes Memorial Service over at the Public Safety Education Training Center. 4 of us will be attending. Commissioner Frazier, Wance, Weaver, and I will be attending. On Saturday, there's nothing. On Sunday, Commissioner Boucher will be giving a podcast, and really looking forward to the 12 o'clock start of a veteran celebration at the Farm Museum, where we all will be attending.
Correction to
Correction.
Wednesday, May 11th.
Yeah.
That Students and Friends of Robert Moden is not at the Westminster Library. It's actually at their 300 South Center Street location.
Okay.
At Robert Moden.
Yeah, at Robert Moden.
Okay, so if we make
you
that
said
The old
that.
Robert Moden.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be, thanks. May 16th, nothing. May 17th, Commissioner Wance will be attending the Planning Commission at 9 o'clock. We will have open session at 1 p.m. to adopt our FY23 budget. At 2 p.m., we have a Veterans Advisory meeting where Commissioner Weaver and I will be attending. Wednesday, May 18th, First Responders Appreciation Day, lunch deliveries. Commissioner Frazier, Wance, and I will be participating in that. That's always, to me, enjoyable to be able to go to the jurisdictions and give them some good food.
We get to partake in food too, right?
I don't know.
I mean, come on. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Okay. Commissioner Boucher and Frazier will be walking in the park at Westminster Community Pond, or maybe in the pond for that matter. On
That's
Thursday,
really not a long walk, so we'll probably have to do it a couple times.
I don't know. On Thursday, we go into open session at 9 o'clock. I imagine it's FY23.
23, yes.
Maryland Criminal Intelligence Network grant application. They do some great work over there with that MCIN, with that network. 9:30, public comment on third quarter fiscal updates, Mr. Zaleski. And then at 1 p.m., we come back into open session
Maybe.
for a work session. When are we adopting this thing? I thought we were adopting it.
No, these are just work sessions.
Oh.
But we might
I
not need that.
apologize.
We might not need
You're
that.
right. So
Right,
we,
might not.
Yeah, yeah.
They're always
you're
on
right.
the agenda.
Yeah, that's just
That's
a tentative
right. So
hold
it's
there.
got it. Thanks. And then 6 p.m. on Thursday, the Maryland Municipal League joint meeting. Commissioner Frazier, Boucher, and I will be attending. I may have a conflict, but we'll figure that out, especially if 2 others are attending. Saturday, May 21st, retirement celebration, Bonnet Mushulam over Westminster. Commissioner Frazier will be attending. Commissioner Weaver,
That's
you have the podcast?
That's Bonnie.
Bonnie.
That's
Bonnie
Boys and
Meshulam.
Girls Club. That's the way she spells
Bonnie
it.
Meshulam.
Bonnie.
Oh, it's Bonnie.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Got it.
Okay.
So on the question of the meeting on Monday, Kathy's sources are better than mine, so she won the she won the getting the scoop the first time. It is 8 to 9:30. It is for the Board of Education, the commissioners, and delegates to have breakfast and meet with the applicant. That's not what was explained to her previously.
It's with the applicant.
Well, and she says applicant, and I've asked her whether she knows applicant, like one,
Yeah.
or applicants,
That's
like
what I
many.
thought it was.
That I'm not sure of, but
Oh, really?
so.
Yeah, that's what I thought
different
it
then.
was.
See, it read both ways on that email.
Yeah, yeah.
It was unclear for sure.
Yeah.
Communication's tough.
put my name down for that then. If we're actually meeting with the applicant, I'd like to see who it is.
Yeah.
Although I have to say, people have told me, I don't know where they got the information from. I'm not going beyond that. That's all I'm saying. Go.
I have no idea.
Did you apply?
No.
Okay.
And
All right.
and that does not violate
Open meetings.
meetings.
Not for you. You're invited to this meeting. It is up to the Board of Education to determine what the open meetings.
Obviously, it
I-
can't be open.
I assume it's probably using some kind of what's the word, personnel. I don't know.
Okay,
I don't think this is,
Board members, it's done in administrative session.
okay,
Does not have to be open.
all right.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Burke. Okay, I
already-
need a motion to go into recess and then to closed. And then
so moved.
Nope, no.
Just
recess,
going into
whatever it's called.
recess. There's no,
Adjourn. Oh,
We're
there's
adjourning.
no closed session afterwards, it's administrative.
oh,
Administrative.
okay. Motion,
Make a motion to adjourn.
that's it. Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
That took a while.
Sleeping.
A little slow here.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 We're adjourned.